Hello and welcome to Northern Israel. I'm sitting here right next to the town of Hasora Gililit, and behind me is a spot believed to be the burial site of Honi HaMe'agel, whose story I will share very shortly. But first, I want to talk about a special date in the Hebrew calendar, and that is the 7th of Marheshvan. The month of Marheshvan, today it's commonly shortened to just Heshvan, but Marheshvan is the full name. And like all of the months in the Hebrew calendar, the names actually were borrowed from the Babylonians around 2,500 years ago during the Babylonian exile, and they've stuck with us ever since. But despite the fact that they're not Hebrew in origin, it's common to attribute some meaning to the Hebrew version of the name, and therefore it's often said that the Mar at the beginning of Marheshvan, Mar means bitter, and the month is bitter because it has no holidays. But another explanation that I really liked is that Mar is not for bitter. Mar means a drop of water. And this is based on a verse in the book of Yeshayahu, chapter 40, verse 15. And there it says, and this is something we read, by the way, on the Shabbat after Tisha B'Av every year, Haftarat Nahamu. So it says, Hen goyim kemar midili. All the nations of the world are but a drop of water from a bucket. So why a drop of water? What does that have to do with Heshvan? Heshvan is the month in which we start praying for rain here in Israel. That means we say the paragraph of Barech Aleinu in the Amidah. And in the diaspora, it's actually waited until later to start saying Barech Aleinu, not until the month of December, because historically, rain was not needed as critically in the diaspora as it was in Israel. But even in the diaspora, like in Israel, the 7th of Heshvan always falls out around the time that we read Parashat Noah. So the great flood and rains of that parasha hint to the starting to pray for rain. But the question is, why do we wait until the 7th of Heshvan to start asking for rain? If we started saying the words Mashib HaRuach Murida Geshem 2 weeks earlier on Shemini Aseret. In those words, we praise God for the rain, but we don't ask for the rain to fall yet until 2 weeks later. So Rabban Gamliel, who lived in the 1st century of the Common Era, in the last generation when the Second Temple still stood, he explains in Masechet Ta'anit, chapter 1, Mishnah 3, that we need to wait 15 days until after Sukkot in order that the visitors, the Jewish pilgrims who came even from the diaspora to celebrate the holiday in the Beit HaMikdash in Jerusalem, we need to give them enough time to get home. And 15 days is enough time for them to reach the Euphrates River, which by the broadest definition is the edge of the land of Israel. And once they're outside the land of Israel, we can ask for the rain. The rain won't stop them from getting home. And from here we learn the important value of hospitality towards one's guests. We want the visitors coming on the holidays to Israel to be comfortable during their stay, but also that they should get home safely so that they will not hesitate to come back in years ahead. So this is what brings me to this place, Honi HaMe'agel. His story is relayed in Masechet Ta'anit as well, chapter 3, Mishnah 8, and he earned his nickname of the Circle Maker from an episode which happened during a year of severe drought. He lived in the first century before the Common Era, during the days of the Hasmonean rulers, and in this year of severe drought, what he did to pray for rain is he drew a circle around himself in the dirt, and he said to God, I will not leave this circle until you bring us rain. And first it started to drizzle, and he said, no, God, that's not what I asked for. Then it started to rain violently, and he said, no, God, that's not what I asked for either, rain of blessing. And God listened to his prayers and brought rain of blessing, and it kept raining and raining until finally the people had to ask him to pray to stop the rain. So from this story we learn the immense power of prayer, and it is my prayer that this year will bring all of Israel plentiful rain and parnasah. And without further ado, I'm going to go now into the cave of Honi HaMe'agel.